right, welcome to the third hour of the Elias Macko Show, and we begin with Philippe J. Fournier, the Pollster creator of 338canada.com. It's been a while since we've spoken on this program, and that's because he's been so busy building an empire, an online empire. It's truly happening. Anyone who now goes to 338canada.com can see the insight and the analysis that Philippe J. Fournier is publishing and join the 338 Canada revolution for themselves. PJ, Philippe, welcome back to the program.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you, Elias. It's good to speak with you again.
It's so good to speak to you. I've said this before, when it comes to accounts to follow on Twitter or X, whatever it's called, you're right up there. You keep publishing terrific information. And I just want to go over a few of the things that you've handled over the last couple of weeks. Let's start off with the Liberal Party of Canada. Your latest projection, okay? Your latest projection for polling in this country, okay? Your seat projection. Conservative Party of Canada, 205 seats. Liberal Party, 81 seats. That's a trouncing, PJ. Philippe, tell me more.
It really is, and I have to say, Elias, you know my work. I am not into hot takery. This is not what I do. I teach science in college, and I teach my students the scientific method, and there's always uncertainty in what we do. And so before publishing numbers like this, I really study them very carefully. And indeed, it's been growing. The lead in the for the Conservatives since August has been growing steadily. But I would say in the past 2 weeks, the polls have been devastating for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. We're not talking just about double-digit lead. We're talking about 15, 16, 14-point leads, including leads in Liberal bedrock, basically the Ontario and Atlantic Canada. And the Conservatives are doing slightly better in Quebec. They're not dominating by any stretch, but they're starting to eat some of that bloc vote in the regions of Quebec outside of Montreal. And you combine that with a strong showing for the Conservatives in the West, and you get to 200 seats. It would be it would be the biggest win since the Mulroney years. Again, this is a projection. We're not having an election anytime soon, but it's still the worst showing for the Liberals since I began tracking the numbers in 2017.
And projections aside, there is no denying that something is happening to the Liberal base and support for the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. What do you think is happening? What is hurting this party so much that we are seeing these large gaps?
There are several factors, and again, I will stick to the numbers, right? We see personal erosion for Justin Trudeau's numbers. So, of course, that doesn't help. When your leader is unpopular, it doesn't help. The wear and tear of time and power, l'usure du pouvoir, Elias, it can weigh on any government. And I had a friend analyst that says, well, COVID years count for triple. So even though Prime Minister has been in power he's in his 9th year now, so a little more over 8 years, the COVID years weigh a lot on people's minds. And so at some point, people just get tired of the guy. The shtick doesn't work anymore.
Okay, but let me push back a bit, right? Because I hear this all the time.
Okay.
It's fatigue, it's fatigue, it's fatigue. It's, 8 years, it's going to be fatigue. But I'm sorry, if everyone had a roof over their head that was reasonably priced and groceries, were reasonable and we weren't seeing inflation everywhere, and at times we saw some more leadership on issues, I'm not so sure we'd be fatigued. I think, the Liberals have been a brand forever in this country. So how much of it, fatigue aside, what does polling tell us on issues? What do we know about how Canadians feel on how the country is being led?
Well, we have numbers on this. I'm glad you asked the question. When we ask what are the most important issues, provincially, we always get healthcare in the first place. But when we talk about more general and federal issues, cost of living, housing, it's right up there. And since, as you said, groceries and inflation and housing has been rising in prices during the Liberal reign, it's going to hurt the Liberals. Now, again, to be fair, unlike some Conservatives in this country that just stub their toe on the corner of their bed and blame Justin Trudeau, to be fair, inflation has been a worldwide phenomenon. But, inflation is high in Germany, it's high in the UK, it's high in France. But if the Liberals think they can go in an election and say, well, inflation is high everywhere, well, good luck with that slogan, because people will say, well, I don't care what's going on in France, now in Germany and UK. I care what's going on here. So when you're in power, you wear it. If the Conservatives were in power and this inflation was hurting the common Canadian, they would have to wear it too. The excuse would not be good enough. Yeah. Now, that being said, Sean Fraser, new housing minister, is working hard with cities to accelerate the building of housing. He has not a lot of runaway to go to. He has a little under 2 years. We'll see if it gets any better. But right now, it's not showing, and Canadians are hurting, and so the Liberals are hurting in the polls.
And I'll just point this out. The United States has inflation as well, but they are also posting month after month tremendous economic growth numbers. So I think that plays into this as well. You can have inflation, but if you're a country that's also following it up with really good economic growth, voters are going to say, okay, we'll take the good with the bad. We don't know if we have that here.
I'll push that, though. Push that. Yeah, economic growth, but for whom? I mean, if it only benefits the top, voters won't be happy. So, but yeah, you're right. It's one point to consider, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's just, if you look at consumer spending in the U.S., it's still off the charts. So I get it. Like, if it's just for the top 1%, I'll do my Bernie Sanders, the top 1% of the 1%. If it's just for that, I get it. But what we're seeing in the U.S. is resiliency amongst all consumers to buy stuff. And I think that's where I see a difference. I want to talk about Poilievre for a second. And actually, it's Poilievre and Trudeau. Leader likability, okay? What are we seeing in Canada when it comes to the leaders, right? Because a lot of people would say the Liberals' fortunes are tied to Justin Trudeau, and then the Conservative fortunes tied to Pierre Poilievre. What are we seeing on likability?
This is something that I wrote for 338 Canada, so I'm glad you asked about this, because the question that we could ask right now, are the Conservatives rising or are the Liberals sinking, or a little bit of both? The personal numbers of Justin Trudeau are really not good. Like, we're talking about net favorability in the minus 30s. This is the worst we've seen in a long time. But when we look at Pierre Poilievre, although it has improved a little bit since he became Conservative leader last year, most Canadians are not enamored with Pierre Poilievre. I mean, the Angus Reid Institute still had 47% of Canadians having a negative opinion, and his positive opinions were in the low 30s. So Pierre Poilievre is not that popular. It's popular among Conservatives, so there's no doubt about this. But I think that right now the numbers suggest that the Conservatives are enjoying a weak and tired government more so than an up-and-comer challenger just riding a wave. But if you can win an election because your opponent is losing, a win is a win, right? They will take it. There's no point for style, as they say in hockey, right?
But Philippe, is there some bias here? Because I see, because we're on Zoom, so I can see your wardrobe, and you're wearing the suit jacket with a button-up shirt, and Pierre Poilievre has switched to the T-shirt. So
I'm still wearing glasses too. So.
That's right. You've stuck with the glasses and the button-up shirt. How much is style playing into this? Has he seen any? Has any of the increase coincided with the style refresh?
Well, that's interesting, because it was this summer that he dropped the glasses and he tried to have a softened image. And it may have worked to the Conservatives' advantage. If you look at the numbers from Pierre Poilievre, from Abacus Data, and from other pollsters like Léger, the numbers have not very changed for the personal numbers of Pierre Poilievre. Now, again, do the Conservatives need to have a softer image? I think they did, but we saw what happened last week in BC with the apple orchard journalist.
Yes.
I mean, to turn back a journalist who's not ready to face the music is one thing, but then to go and fundraise and make T-shirts about it. This is the difference between being a fierce politician and sometimes being, well, you know what.
Yeah, so. And I wonder how much of it stays in the Twitter silo, the X silo, and how much of it goes out into the ether amongst all Canadians. I mean, we eventually talked about it on our program. I spent the whole week saying, let's put this aside. Then Friday, I couldn't avoid it anymore, that video with the apple. And we eventually brought it in the show. So I wonder just how much stays in the social media silos where you're just in a bubble and how much of it goes to everyone. That's a fair point, but I would add that the video is one thing. The fundraising on the video is another. Yeah.
I mean, the making the t-shirts about, I mean, just to keep dunking on this in journalists is, I mean, Monsieur Poiliev sometimes acts and scoffs at journalists on the press gallery. It's part of it. It's part of the game.
Yeah.
But to then go and say we see as a liberal conspiracy, this is another league, I think, and it can take us to dark places. So we'll see.
Philippe J. Fournier is with us, the pollster creator of 338canada.com, as we dissect the polls and the numbers in this country. Philippe, before we go anywhere else, actually, I want to return to Justin Trudeau for a second, because part of your empire, I mentioned you've got a whole media empire now. And I saw this, you discussed this on one of your podcasts, the question of, should Justin Trudeau go? Should he walk the plank, move on and let the Liberals have a new leader? And you know, if it's fatigue, refresh the party that way. What say you on that? What do the poll numbers say on that question?
Well, here's the thing. There's no obvious successor. If one could say Miss Freeland, Madame Joly, or even maybe Mark Carney, although I'm not sure a banker would be able to eat that NDP vote. The recipe for a Liberal leader to win a federal election is at least to win 30, 40 seats in Quebec and at least 70 or 80 in Ontario. There's no other path. And so who in the current crew could take the place of Justin Trudeau? And to finish my answer, I would also say Justin Trudeau, for many observers, has been a better campaigner than he has been a prime minister. So the Conservatives went into the 2019 and the 21 campaign thinking they had Justin Trudeau beat, and he beat them.
Yes.
So it would be, I think, a bad idea to underestimate him, even though he has bad numbers right now.
Okay, let's turn our attention to La Belle Province in Quebec. One of the things you looked at your website is what the polling says about if immigration is a threat to language and culture in Quebec. I believe what you found is that it comes down to party lines. Tell us more.
It is always a very touchy subject, and when we craft a poll, we have to be very careful, Elias, with the wording of such questions. So the wording: do you agree that current levels of immigration cause a threat to the French language and to the Quebec culture? And when the results province-wide were divided, 43% disagreed with this, whereas 38% agreed with this. And when we looked at the breakdown because it was a big poll, a Quebec-only poll, so we had a big sample, we could break it down by age, by gender, and by party lines. By age, voters under 50 years old disagreed with the statement in majority. It was more split with the older voters. But when you look at party lines, as you said, Liberal and Quebec Solidaire voters overwhelmingly disagreed. 3/4 of them disagreed, and only about 13% agreed with the statement. On the other side of the spectrum, however, you had the CAQ, a much more split results. You had 29% who disagreed and 46% who agreed. So when Monsieur Legault talked about this very important to consider for the French language and the amount of immigrants, or permanent immigrants, should I say, that we accept, it's part of this campaigning. And when you look at the Parti Québécois number, 62% agreed that the current levels of immigration are too high and are a danger for French language and Quebec culture. So I think those numbers, seeing such a stark difference along party lines, tells me that it could be an election issue in 2026 in the province of Quebec.
And what does it tell you for a floundering party like the Liberal Party of Quebec? You see what their current voters say, but they need to expand the base. They need Francophones to vote for them. What do you think these numbers tell you?
Well, it's hard to say, because first, the Liberal sample is quite low because the Liberals are unpopular right now. These are current Liberal supporters. And also, it shows that immigration is not that much of a wedge issue in Quebec, except if you're fighting between the Parti Québécois and the CAQ. This is what it tells me. So for the Liberals to come back, immigration is not the way to do it. I think they have to go back on their historically strong subjects, such as the economy. Right now, the CAQ has eaten them alive on this subject. I think the Liberals have a long list of problems. This issue, I think, is down the list. Okay.
Philippe, I sometimes liken myself as a pollster and a bit of a political mind. Now, I tried my game at this, but I wanted to have fun. So this is how this all began. On this program yesterday, we were talking about Jean Charest weighing in on the tuition increases for out-of-province students. We had a good chuckle, obviously, that Jean Charest has finally found the tuition increase he doesn't like. Haha, very good. And then, through our panel at 9 o'clock and then through our listeners on the text line and the phone lines, we somehow ended up in a place where people are like, hey, bring Charest back. The Liberals are floundering. Jean Charest, like 12 seconds ago, tried to be the leader of the federal Conservatives. He still has an itch where he wants to be in politics. I don't think that can be denied. So we threw it out there. And let me tell you, PJ, our listeners are Anglos, majority Anglos. We have some Francophone listeners, but majority Anglos. And boy, they like that idea more than I expected. Okay. So I asked on Twitter, if Jean Charest took over the Quebec Liberals again, what would the party be polling at after 1 month? That was my question. You saw it, PJ. Give me your insight.
I like it. I like politics fiction. Sometimes I dabble in it. And so, the thing is, aside from asking why would Jean Charest want to come back, I think isn't he suing the Quebec government because
but I think he won. I think he won.
Yeah. So if you're asking would the Liberals do better with Jean Charest right now than with Marc Tanguay, the answer obviously is yes. I could see a fun scenario where Jean Charest comes back as interim, just to set the party straight and to have a new leader in a few years. But why in the world would Jean Charest want to come back in this panier de crabe? Isn't he making much, much, much more money doing a less stressful job being a lawyer?
I think he likes it.
It's still.
Why did he run? Why did he run for leadership of the Conservatives? Do you think leading the Conservatives right now with the friction internally in that party would have been fun? He just likes he likes power.
And, I followed that leadership campaign. I mean, Poiliev, of course, won, and it was an easy win. But Jean Charest in those debates, he was still pretty good. And regardless of what you think of Jean Charest, I mean, he was a master debater that he took apart Bernard Landry in 2003. And, of course, he resisted the ADQ wave. And he won 5 provincial elections in Quebec, won 3 of them, won the popular vote and 4 of them. It would be interesting to see him come back, but it would not take the Liberals back to glory. I think it would just make more Anglos want to vote Liberal.
Let me ask you something here, because I know now you've been running some polls. You've been commissioning polls with the folks at Pollster Data, right? That's a poll.
That's right.
This is a poll question. Liberals with Jean Charest. What would you run the numbers with all the current leaders except you replace at the Liberals Jean Charest? What would you vote for? Isn't that interesting?
Duly noted.
Duly noted. Right?
In November, we'll see. Speaking of which, Elias, if I may just for 1 second, I have new numbers from Palace Data that I will publish this week. Those are federal numbers, but a fair Quebec sample asking about the situation in the Middle East and other questions. I think it would be very interesting to dissect and I'll have new Quebec numbers sometime in November. Maybe I'll dabble in it. I'm not sure Jean Charest would appreciate though, but we'll see.
It's the draft movement. Sometimes you get drafted.
That's right.
First things first. Palace Data. I said Pollster. I'm thinking of what's the guy? Brian Pollster. That's what was in my brain. Palace
he's
Data.
Gone now. Yeah,
he's gone now. Exactly. PJ Fournier, you are forced to be reckoned with when it comes to polling in this country, and it's so great to catch up with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Elias. Talk to you soon.
Go check out the website 338canada.com for much, much more.